So what we're looking at today is we're looking at the role of recruitment consultants, recruiters, within an agency environment or within a corporate environment. So let's start with the absolute basics and find out what is a recruiter. What is the common thread? What is that common DNA that makes a recruiter? Because recruiters really are the truest form of matchmakers in one of the most important aspects of our life. We are the real middlemen, and we're working to serve the best interests of all parties. What we do is we bring employment opportunities and suitably qualified and valuable people together for a mutual beneficial working relationship. So what is the purpose of a recruiter? Because the agency recruiter and the corporate recruiter do not necessarily have the same purpose. An agency recruitment is there to fill jobs and to make money. It's a very money-driven role where the focus is getting the role filled and generating cash. In the corporate environment, this is not always the case. Internal and corporate, of course, the role is to fill positions, but it also is to reduce the spend and dependency on the agencies, whilst building internal talent and capacity. So with different purposes for a corporate recruiter versus an agency recruitment, I think it's fair to say that the profile of each of these two recruiters will be quite different. So let's spend a minute and just take a look at the difference between the profiles of the two. And this is where things start getting interesting, because the different requirements obviously require different kinds of people to be successful. Sure, there will always be those recruiters that can make the transition and will be effective in both scenarios, but for the most, agency recruiters and corporate recruiters are actually quite different, and it's not merely a one-size-fits-all kind of environment. When it comes to the type of people that are truly successful in the respective roles, it's worthwhile taking a look at some of the characteristics of the respective roles. Firstly, an agency recruiter needs to have a sales profile. And these characteristics would include strong negotiation skills, if not influencing skills, the ability to close a deal, and we all know the ABC mantra, always be closing. You need excellent communication skills. Your phone is your instrument, it's your tool, it's your weapon. If you're a recruiter and you're not working the phone, then you're not working. You need to be extremely resilient, tough-minded and competitive. Agency recruiters cannot take rejection personally. They cannot take the constant feedback and negative feedback personally. They cannot take the constant disappointment personally. Agency recruiters should be striving to work as much as possible with passive candidates, often exclusively. That beauty that you headhunted after hours that nobody else has. Agency recruiters are often also very individually focused and very driven and less concerned with the overall success of the team. Their success is their own motivation. I want my commission because I build ABC. And finally, but probably most relevant, is they're extremely money driven. This is something that all agency recruiters should be, because good recruiters need to be money driven. It is an incentive based industry. The earning potential in recruitment will often push recruiters to achieve extraordinary things. Top recruiters in our industry probably bill between 5 and 10 million rand per annum, often taking home about a third of that in total. That salary is probably what the president of our country earns, if not more, which makes you think. The corporate recruiter, however, is quite different, because their purpose is very different. The types of people fulfilling these roles will obviously not be the same as the agency. They often tend to possess very strong administrative skills, a skill that many agency recruiters do often not pay much attention to. The barriers to entry are often much higher in corporate resourcing as well, usually requiring some form of tertiary education, where this is very seldom the case on the agency side of things. Very specific industry knowledge. Corporate recruiters are generally required to have considerable insight into the specific market that they are servicing and recruiting for. Agency recruiters are often afforded the luxury of picking up the skills as they go along. Corporate recruiters are often working mostly with active candidates, ones that are provided either by their own database, ad responses, and possibly even eventually making use of the agencies. And corporate recruiters are often driven by team results and less about who did what part of the process and what they can be incentivized for. There are usually a number of people from various departments that all play a part in getting a new person on board. The focus is on the group and on the team, and not specifically on the benefit of each of them. So we've touched very briefly on the different purposes of the two roles, the counter characteristics. Maybe let's just take a minute and talk about what are the various career options within these two streams of recruiters. Initially, there's probably a common thread to all recruiters, and that very much is we fill jobs, but the motivation behind filling those jobs is quite different. Certainly the agency environment is probably a more adrenaline-based, often extremely high pressure, high risk, high reward environment, whereas internally it's a more stable environment. But let me go through a few points over here, and let's see if it answers some of the questions, and we can touch on that one in a second again. So if we're looking at the various career options, let's take that and let's try and make it more applicable to our own local market. The world of agency recruitment is probably more entrenched and established currently than corporate recruitment in South Africa, but already both sides are providing wonderful career opportunities. On the agency side, there are roles for pure recruiters. You have team leaders, production managers, operations managers, branch managers, general managers, directors, and executives. There are administrative roles, there are support functions as well. The top salaries I have seen are over 2 million rand per annum in this space within an agency environment. With the introduction of RPO services, agency recruiters will also have more scope of applying their trade for the foreseeable future and a long time to come. On the corporate side, however, there are many roles that have already been established in a relatively short period of time. You've got the pure corporate recruiter, maybe a more specialist recruiter. You've got pure resourcing specialists. You've got resourcing managers, heads of recruitment, and even global heads of resourcing. These salaries go as high, if not higher, than the agency roles as well. There is, however, a definite, undeniable move towards in-house recruitment by large companies, which is going to put increasing pressure on agencies to remain relevant. And that's a very, very key phrase that I emphasize. Yeah. Agencies need to remain relevant. And how exactly an agency chooses to remain relevant is entirely up to its own discretion. But I would think that if you're providing your clients with somebody that they do not have, or somebody that they are unable to get themselves, or you're providing them with somebody more cost effectively than they can get themselves, this would be a very good place at least to start to remain relevant. And we're looking at career options. I think a very important question also to look at is, why are so many people attracted to an in-house recruitment environment? In my business, we are currently receiving roughly 20 times more applications for our corporate resourcing roles than we are for our agency roles.
That's
20 times, if not higher. I think that number's soft. Is the grass always greener? Is corporate resourcing truly the promised land that all recruiters are looking for? I'm not so sure. And making the transition between the two is not always as easy as people might think it is. The roles are, of course, similar in their core, but ultimately very different, and they will appeal to very different kinds of people. Many companies are also choosing to bring recruiters in at a more junior level and train them up in the specific ways of the company, rather than just bringing across agency recruiters. I've seen this with a number of our listed companies and believe that it's a trend that might well continue to gain momentum. And at this point, there's probably two main reasons that I've identified why agency recruiters are looking to make the move across. One is uncertainty. The recruitment agency environment over the last few years has been a very difficult space, and for an industry that is extremely commission and incentive based, many talented recruiters are looking for a more stable environment with more security in their income. And career options. Despite all the career options that I mentioned within an agency, there's still a perception that there's a far greater career growth path for recruiters to work in a corporate environment. I would say that this is particularly true in owner-managed smaller recruitment businesses, where you have the owner that is probably the MD and the final ultimate decision maker. The chances that he or she is going to appoint somebody to take on senior executive functions within the business are probably less likely than promotional opportunities within the career. But although you do have these fundamental differences between the two, one could ask the question whether there are any characteristics or competencies that exist in recruiters on both sides, be it in the agency side and in the corporate resourcing side. In other words, the million-dollar question: what actually makes a good recruiter, and can that recruiter be great across all platforms? At Brannon, we have done specialized psychometric profiling of over 3,000 recruiters in South Africa, gauging attitudinal competencies across 6 key areas, and by a huge margin, the 2 competencies that are almost always true in successful recruiters. Number 1, cognitive ability. Good recruiters are usually smart, and this is one of the competencies that can be rather accurately assessed prior to employing a recruiter. The second one is conscientiousness. They do the things that need doing. They take responsibility for ensuring that they get done. They are devoted and loyal to their work. With these 2 characteristics across all sectors, across all industries, across various roles, if you've got a smart person who is very dedicated to their job, your chances of getting it right really do increase tremendously. And in addition to these 2, I'd like to add my own third component, which I've picked up over the years, which I will call working environment. I'm also tempted to call it the Fernando Torres syndrome. For those of you who support the English Premier Football League, you'll know that Fernando Torres was the most expensive signing in Premier League history, being sold for around 700 million rand. He had been a goal machine wherever he played. He was then bought by Chelsea Football Club, and for no apparent reason he just stopped scoring goals. But why? He's still young, he's still healthy, and he now has even more exposure to every kind of support structure and infrastructure that money can buy. Why do good recruiters move from one environment to another and not work out? Why do good recruiters move within the same sector, doing the same work with the same infrastructure and technology, but they just stop billing? Quite often it's the actual working environment, the very way that a business actually exists, that most employees often take for granted, such as your brand name and your history, including your reputation and your goodwill. It's the culture of your business, including its values. And it's the management of the business, how people are managed and how they are treated within your organization. In closing, for the presentation, we can thrash around a few ideas afterwards, but in closing, picking good recruiters is unfortunately not an exact science, and there are no guarantees for always getting it right. There's no magic recipe. I sincerely wish there was. It would make my life exponentially easier, and I think far more lucrative. I think it's rather a process of eliminating the possibility of getting it wrong in appointing somebody. Instead of looking for reasons why you want to take somebody, it might not be a bad idea to look for reasons why not to take them, and then deciding how important is that risk factor to you and your business. Identify the elements that concern you in a person, and then satisfy yourself on these points. Use referencing, assessments, profiling, and thorough competency-based interviewing. But make sure to satisfy yourself on these points. Once you have, you'll be comfortable with the person that you bring into your business and know about their makeup. I'm confident that recruiters will still be providing an invaluable service for a long time to come on both sides of the deal. The landscape of business will continue to change, as it always has, and recruiters will need to adapt to the ever-increasing factors of social media, technology, and whatever else is the next black swan waiting in the shadows to change the way that we all live, coexist, and conduct our businesses. What I look for in a recruiter, for my own business and for my clients that I represent and service, is somebody that clearly has a passion for making a difference in the lives of people and by providing them with world-class service during this very important time in their lives. Recruiters are unique in the fact that we do not sell cars or houses, shoes or sunglasses. No. Instead, our products are in fact people that we're attempting to market. As long as we never forget that we are in the people business, incorporating all the best practice that business has to offer, but always bringing it back to people. If we do that and we make sure that we do it well, I think that we will still remain relevant for a long time to come.